And we have a clicker, magic events. Okay.
Which one?
I think it's the second one.
This one.
Yes. So let's start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so just some words before starting. Every time I'm delivering a presentation, I'm always selecting very carefully the first picture that is on the background. And this one, basically, what I did is very simple. I took all the text that Guillaume and we put into our deck, and I dropped it into a Gemini, and I said, please, what will be the image that represents what Guillaume and I will represent? So I'm not sure that at the end of the session it's what you will feel, but it's how we wanted to come to you and present this session. So thank you very much, James, because your presentation was very, very insightful. I think that you put the focus on exactly the thing that our industry basically need to tackle. And I hope that with the peers that are here, we have some, I would say, thoughts or ways perhaps to mitigate some of the points that you mentioned very accurately. So I decided to make this presentation with Guillaume because the idea was in our view to have on my side perhaps a more, I would say, strategic overview about the cloud native topic of what we are doing here at Orange. And with Guillaume, the idea is to connect with the reality of the field operation.
On the open source part, but also what is deployed in production in our different countries.
Exactly, and you will speak about the Silva project and our very own Orange Telco Cloud. So, the first slide is definitively about setting the stage. So we, as Telco, basically, we are not a SaaS player, we are not a digital player, we are not retailers. So it means that all the reasons that have been so much shared about why it's so much exciting to reach cloud native are exactly not the same that can be applicable for us. Why we are so much engaged into this journey is because of the flexibility and agility that it brings to us to deploy the infrastructure from core to run. But honestly, the true story for us is definitively on the operation side, and we truly believe that with cloud-native infrastructure, we can deliver very, very different way of the operation. And all of this is mainly, I would say, possible thanks to the four superpower that I'm sharing when I'm talking about cloud-native. So it's about the resiliency, it's about the healing capability, the closed-loop reconciliation, and the drift management when we are applying the right framework to deploy the infrastructure and to deploy on the top the network function. So it means that all of these cloud-native things will open three new things in terms of frontiers, challenges, and turning point. So in terms of frontiers, I think that the flexibility and the resiliency topic have been very well introduced. I think that the sustainability topic is something that we definitively need to prove because the way the network function and the services have been set are questionable about the way to manage the sustainability. Even if by book the cloud native implementation with the containers as the better, I would say, form factor in terms of compute density. About the challenges, we have a lot of challenges that are behind all of this. Of course, the first one, and that's why I'm so happy that there is so many people in front of me here, it's about the requirement. Basically, the requirements are super important. And as far as we as telecom operator, we will keep on separate and different, I would say, requirements. It will be super hard to make the industry converging. So the requirements part for me is super important. Of course, the skills is certainly number one topic. I think from technical standpoint, we will manage it from skills, it's very, very super challenging. Because at the end of the day, if the functionality of the network function are always, I would say, 3GPP-like in terms of definition, the way the services and the infrastructure basically are packaged, deployed, roll out, operated, mitigated, and so on, is totally different. And here, the question is about how we're able to extend all that we started on the intent and on the declarative side, I would say, at the right scale. And the operating model, because the idea is not to, I would say, operate a traditional monolithic architecture, and now with a very, very highly distributed infrastructure and network function workloads, the ephemerality and the high fragmentation of how the runtime is managed is bringing a new set of, I would say, challenges as well. And we are at a new turning point as well. There is this question of vendors alignment regarding what is cloud native, what is not, how, on which kind of infrastructure do I need to prove that I'm cloud native? So there is definitively something here, and the different initiatives that have been highlighted by James for me are very incremental on this. There is as well one super important, and it will be perhaps something that Guillaume will manage later on, is that we are truly engaged today to move from a highly vertical, closed and proprietary model to something that is much more horizontal. And that's why we have internally in our strategy one industrial model with two parts that is absolutely a game changer for us. The first one is, of course, on the infrastructure, and it's the topic that will be managed later on by Guillaume. And as well, because for me the two topics are super critical, the way we are able to deploy and manage the lifecycle management of the network function that are living on top. Having, I would say, a state-of-the-art cloud-native infrastructure is fine, but if it's so as only two network function, at the end of the day, it won't be a winning equation for no one. And the Kali versus Quanti, I think that with this horizontal move and the way we want to move forward into this horizontal model, the way we need to manage the procurement should be totally, definitively different. Because if we want to enter this horizontal mode, it means, I would say, multi-network function and multi-country deployment, whereas today we are perhaps very, very fragmented. So, as ever, we in 2023 had a very, very strong opportunity to make strong progress. So, for me, there are two documents. The first one is the Cloud Native Manifesto that has been delivered by the Engineering Alliance, and the second one that is basically a pledge that have been signed by all the CTOs of the telecom company that are members of the NGMN based on the 7 principles that are shared here. And the second one, that is for me much more, I would say, deeper from technical requirements, is the white paper that have been jointly co-signed by different contributors among operators, that is now hosted into the Cloud Native Telecom initiative at Linux Foundation Networking, and some of you in the room have been direct contributors to this work. Honestly, I think that with the manifesto and with the requirement, it's not the end of the game, but it's clearly material that could really help us, and we as Telco, to express with a very direct voice, basically, the kind of new requirement and the way we want to work. And it's exactly what we did internally at Orange with the contribution on the Cloud Native Manifesto and on the white paper with the requirements. We decided to set up and build our own Orange Cloud Native Manifesto that is today our strong foundation that basically fuel the Cloud Native transformation for telco purpose. That is, I would say, leveraged by the industrial model that I introduced, where basically we have one manifesto and a requirement. We have a full program of awareness and assessment for our employee. And to make it real, we very, very hardly work on something that was super helpful, is the Cloud Native Telco Readiness Assessment, where basically we identify roughly 30 criteria on 5 levels of maturities to help our team and the different projects to understand where they are and where they need to move to be cloud native, I would say, at scale. So I will pause and share and pass the mic to Guillaume for the operating part.
Thank you, Philippe, for giving this vision where we want to go, and it's very important to rely on documentation like the Cloud Manifesto and the output of the CNCF working group on telco part. And these considerations have been integrated into Silva, where we are now and what is the future. So where we are now, we have delivered our first release, and so we are addressing the challenges of to manage a distributed cloud and be able to manage thousands of Kubernetes clusters, which is a requirement by the telco use cases. We've got now a validation program with already 6 different vendors and many different network functions that are in the backlog. We have delivered a stack with specific hardening on the operating system, on the Kubernetes layer, on the access management. And what is in front of us? Many topics have to be still covered. We have the vision on what we want to do on the CO2 manufacturing process, but also energy monitoring. We need now to deliver the tool. We had initialized a GitOps view, and we have introduced GitOps into the stack, and we want to have a full GitOps lifecycle management, including the deployment of the workload cluster. And we have already integrated the requirement for the 5G core and many network functions, but we want also to embrace the Open RAN use cases with new requirements, for example, the real-time operating system, how to manage the time synchronization, and so on. And to have a global view on the project, so the project is still young. It has been launched in November 2022. And we have, to reinforce the project, we have attached a dedicated budget in the directed fund governance. And now where we are today, we have delivered our first release last month. We have got 50 developers, so we have hired with all the partners some developers and dedicated to this project. We have now 12 financial sponsors, and we have 10 network functions in the backlog. So you see the project is still young, and we have a minimum quorum now to go in production, but we want to extend the ecosystem. As mentioned by James, it's impossible to stay here. We need to grow in terms of adoption, in terms of operators. How to grow? We need some workload in production. And this year and this semester, we're going to have Silva implementation within Orange, within our own industrial offer based on Silva, Orange Telco Cloud, where we are going in production. We have other operators this year who are going to go in production with Silva, and we will have large deployments next year. So the adoption is growing. We have started with a bet. Silva at the beginning was a bet. Now we need to transform it in an impactful project in the telco ecosystem. So now, where are the limits also on the validation and why we want to go further? Today, the operators are managing lots of effort in the CNF integration. So it's very important effort and investment and cost to manage this integration. It's not simple application. And in the same time, the NF vendors have costly effort to support each operators with different integration to manage. So we think that with two initiatives on the validation part, the first one with the CNTI, so CNTI is the evolution of Unwicket and also the merge with the CNCF telco user group. We have this opportunity to define some common criteria and some testing, common framework testing on the network functions to be cloud native and to be iteratively more cloud native, more secure, and at this layer we really need to progress. And we have also the validation program of Silva, and Luis Velarde is with us, is the leader of this work group. Here we see that we need to address a very specific topic. It's not only having generic tests, we are going to test the Silva stack on specific hardware with specific network functions. And at the end of the day, we need this full test, including the server part. So, but we have limited tests on terms of performance today. And now we have some limitation. If we manage some tests with certain network functions vendor, it doesn't mean that these vendors are fully reassurance, giving the reassurance on this configuration. So this is something we have to tackle, how to work with network functions vendor to build this support on this configuration.
And yes, just perhaps some last words before handing over. My analysis basically, I would say that I'm a newbie in the telco industry. I spent 25 years of my life in enterprise market, more on the SaaS and on the digital ecosystem. What I realized when I enter into this new game for me is that it's an ecosystem that is lagging behind, I would say, at best 10 years from what I've got previously. Is it a problem? Honestly not, because I think that everyone in this room is exactly more or less in the same situation. But we have one very, very big chance, is that the train that make the success on other part of the areas definitively could help us to make us stronger and faster. But at one very, very, for me, reason. We absolutely need to manage the fragmentation that set us and set our industry where we are today. And it has been perfectly highlighted by the presentation of James. So here, basically, we absolutely need to unite our force, because we will be always better together. I would say between telcos and also between standardization and open source bodies. You know what? Every time we are talking with our best friend network vendors of the world, they are always saying, "Oh, it's interesting. It's the first time that you are asking this for me." Honestly, seriously, is it really the first time? Of course not. But as far as we will get in front of our partners, because the network function vendors are our partners, okay? No doubt on this. But as if we are united and if we share, I would say, common and same, I would say, manifesto, requirement and certification process toward, I would say, the vendors, the integrators, and the hardware ecosystem, it will honestly very, very strongly help us. So it's not, I think it's a kind of call, but I'm observing that all of this is happening because otherwise you won't be there today. But I'm strongly convinced that we are at a moment in time where we should converge in the requirement and the manifesto and so on. So it's perhaps the last word that I wanted to share. And Guillaume, I let you the floor for the first one.
Yeah, and to conclude, we wanted to be very concrete. I mentioned some example with CNTI, but also with ETSI NFV. How can we work more together? And I think I mentioned 3 topics. The first one is that we think that a long-time support in Kubernetes will be helpful to build our cloud horizontal strategy. Why? Because it will be easier to have the same rhythm with the IT vendors, but also the network functions vendor, and we think it's important to be aligned on this topic. The second topic is cluster API. Cluster API can be the de facto standard on exposing the north interface of the cloud. And in this approach, I think we are quite aligned between ETSI NFV and Silva project. And the last topic, but not the same, but not the easy one, is the network functions deployment and lifecycle management. How I can provision, but also how I can upgrade my network functions. So, and here we have the introduction of the GitOps paradigm that has to be strongly integrated also at the ETSI NFV layer. So there's a beautiful story between ETSI NFV and Kubernetes. Why we can do things, why we can have a similar idea to manage the GitOps way to manage the network functions.
And just perhaps the last word, because if you remember well on the challenges that I mentioned, the one based on the skills, if every time we are deploying a network function, we need to have our employee knowledgeable on very narrow and specific ecosystem, it won't help us at all for the horizontal model. That's why for the deployment, we truly need to rely on open and standardized tools that basically are what we are using in the software world. And it's perhaps a good ending and a good question. Perhaps that's what we are expecting from network vendors, is that they transform themselves into software vendors and to have the ability to manage the package and the deliverable that are, and the artifact that they are producing the way we are using in any kind of industry software.
Thank you. Thank you. Message and good collaboration on work. So, any questions? Few questions.
Yeah, but it's on a specific slide. I'm not sure. Can you get back to the slide on the validation and the limits? By the way, this is Juan from the Homo. In the last point, it says no automatic vendor support yet on this process. What does it mean that you see that the vendors are not yet there and they want to get there, or you see that the vendors are not yet there but you don't see that they are actually trying to get there?
We've got currently the traction that the validation program of Silva is welcoming new vendors. So this is the good news. Now, what we want is to have network functions in production. And in this second step, we still need to rework with the same actors to mention, hey, you validate this in the validation center of Silva. No, I need these network functions in my production environments. And there's, we have the new milestones, and it's not at all automatic. So I want to have a smoothly path on this way.
Okay. But you also consider that it might not be automatically, it might not be an automatic process in some sense that what might be validated on the Silva part might be more about whether it is working on Silva, but what might be validated when you onboard it on the operator side is because you might have also additional verification processes from the operator itself, right?
Yeah, we need other validation on the horizontal integration between the network, between the functions and the functions layer. But here the message is really that we need to shift the industry to have this horizontal cloud, and that if we do some tests on Silva, it means that it will be easy technically, but it needs also to be easy commercially to have the results in production.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Last question.
Thank you for the presentation. This is Samal from NEC. I have a question on the last slide, where you have shared the vision of Cluster API as a northbound interface for the Telco cloud. I want to understand the idea behind it. Is the idea that this interface can also be used by upper level management entities like the VNF manager or the network service manager or orchestrator to manage the deployed network functions in runtime? Or what is the idea? Who will consume this de facto northbound interface?
Important question. Definitely, it's what we want to share it with you today. Is that, for example, on NFIO, we can integrate NFIO with this cluster API to provision then the cluster and the infrastructure, the underlying infrastructure. But we need also to work at the NFV level on this topic. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, thank you. We have already had a very good presentation from Silva people earlier last week, and yeah, I think it's a good idea and can serve as an integration between upper level entities who can consume Sol 18 and Sol 20 based interfaces that this Silva is making available on the northbound. Yeah.
Thank you, Philippe, and Kirish. And the